Ever hear about Queens of the Mountain event? Well, then you're going to want to tighten your shoulder packs, refill that water bottle, and check your boots next on Live Free and Ham. Hello and welcome to Live Free and Ham podcast. This is our weekly show where we discuss ham radio topics in New Hampshire, New England, and beyond. We're thrilled to have you here as always, and we appreciate you if you've been a regular listener, or maybe this is your first time tuning in, and thanks again for joining us for tonight's episode. So let's get in the show. I'm your host, call sign Eric, N1JUR, and I'm with my co-host,
Todd, W1STJ.
And we have two special guests tonight. You guys can decide who goes.
Amy.
And my name is Paula K9IR, Irascible Rapscallion.
Ooh, very cool. Way to break phonetics there. You're going to have a bunch of angry lids there going nuts. All right. Well, anyway, good to hear you. Good to have you guys on. We are super excited to talk about tonight. So we're going to get into a little SOTA. But before we do that, let's get into our usual stuff we do. As always, you can head over to our storefront at livefreeandham.com/shop. Check out all our merch, pick up a bacon pack of our hammies. And, you know, we're always adding new stuff to the store. So make sure you head over there and check that stuff out. So you don't miss out on some of the latest swag. As always, you can head over and connect with our community. You can do that in a number of ways. Obviously, the easiest way is our live stream. Every month we get to live stream. So make sure if you haven't already, head over to our YouTube channel. And make sure you become a subscriber and click that bell so you get notified when we do go live, because sometimes we don't even know when we're going live. So it's a surprise to all of us. So make sure you don't miss out on the fun and action. And as you know, there are many ways you can get a hold of us. As we've said in the past, you can get in touch with us via email or SMS, or you can always do the favorite mode is leave us a voicemail at 978-233-1142. And as always, all those links are in the show notes. So make sure you click on one of those. And as we've said in the past, you know, and it's been pretty effective that, you know, stop what you're doing right now. If you feel compelled to leave a voicemail, put this, this little episode on pause, dial that number and leave us a note, and we'll make sure we play it on the next episode. So, you know, with that, you can always help support our show too as well. As you can become a Patreon member, and all of our Patreon members get a ton of free stuff. They get access to our early show releases, as well as our uncut and unedited episodes. And as Bob Koff says, and I am not queued for him tonight. Oh my gosh, this is sad. All right, well, I am off. Here we go. There we go.
You can join for as little as $3 a month. It's not a big expense.
See, we can't forget about Bob there. Bob is one of our Patreon subscribers, and he's a great supporter of the show. And like he says, for $3 a month, you could easily join and get a whole bunch of stuff and be part of the Live Free and Ham community there. All right. So we are one, guest host short tonight. I assume Paul is sailing the friendly skies at this moment. He may join us a little later, hopefully. So we'll see where it goes from there. But so we are gonna, change things up a little bit because we've changed platforms here a little bit. So, we don't have all of our segments plugged in, but for tonight, we actually have something for our mailbag. So go ahead, Todd, pick up, mailbag there.
All right. So we got it was an email, and it says, hey, y'all, great show. I enjoy listening when I have time. Keep up the good work. SOTA on, brothers. KJ5CTS, James. Well, thanks, James. Thanks for the email. And we will keep potoing on, I guess.
Yep. That's what we do around here. We potoing.
Yeah.
So all good there. Yeah. Thank you again, James, for sending something in there, especially from the fan mail side of things. So we appreciate that, guys. And feel free, definitely we love the feedback. We love the comments. If you get questions or whatever, feel free to send us our way, and we love to read them on every episode. So keep them coming, guys. All right. Well, we don't have anything via WinLink because obviously our WinLink guru Paul is not here tonight. So this segment's going to be flying by. This will probably be one of our shortest episodes per se in general content, but I'm sure it'll be long extended once we get into the SOTA content, which I'm looking forward to here. So we do not have any do goods tonight, so we are fully going to skip over do good. And obviously we can't do an N1OG where he's now because we have no idea where he is right now, so we're just going to skip right over him today.
When's the last time you heard from him?
Last time I think I texted him was his last video. He said, "Hey, you got to jump on the premiere there. I need you to be on the premiere," and I forgot. So that was like a couple of days ago. So he is definitely probably basically working hard to get his Class A there. So hopefully he'll have some more to share with us when we get going there. But with that, you know what that means. This is a reprieve. Todd gets a day off from doing something extra with us. So Paula and Amy don't get to experience the full 24/7 of Live Free and Ham here. I don't know whether that's good or bad for you guys, but either way,
it's a good thing they're here because without them, who would watch the show? Because that's all they do is wait for the something extra section, right?
That or your Chronicles of Baseball. Hey, either way, and I'm sure you got a lot of those too.
I've got plenty of Chronicles of Baseball tonight, if that's where you want to go. But I think I'd rather talk about SOTA.
I'm with you on that. All right. Well, so with that, obviously with something extra, we are a true supporter of hamstudy.org. So as always, the last bit, head over to them if you're looking to study here. Actually, I think we did have actually, I'm going to say this because I know Paul's not here and he usually does this, but we always like to at the very end of a little something extra, Todd, to say, hey, if you are studying for any of your level class licenses and you've, gotten your license class, send us an email. So we actually got an email from Angelo. Angelo says, "Hey guys, Angelo here, formerly Kilo Charlie 3 Zulu Lima X-Ray, now Whiskey 3 Papa India Golf. W3 Pig." Pretty cool call sign. Yeah. I wanted to let you guys know that I passed my extra exam and I knew I was ready for the test when I was able to start going 3 for 3 on your little something extra segments. So there you go. See, Todd, you are helping others reach their goals for their extras.
My goal.
So yeah, hopefully they'll rally around and come back. He said, "Also hated my original call and the following systematically assigned call sign I got. So I just got my vanity of W3PIG approved. It will all work out better when handling out those hamlets." Oh, yes. And so if you don't know what those hamlets are, we have our small little piglets here. They actually have made their way through Dayton a little bit. And so, if you're a Jeeper and you have, seen the ducks that all the Jeepers get, well, you can head over to gethammed.com and pick up a set and you can distribute these. There's a small little disc on the bottom that allows you to write your call sign and it says where to get them. And you can leave these on people's cars. And I know Mike, N2MAK, he's done a bunch of them. He hammed a bunch of people and I've been doing it all around my neighborhood and whatnot. And it's always fun to watch people look at these things and go, what the heck are these? And so, it's really cool. Now, again, you have to do it to...
I'm waiting to get an 18-wheeler because I see those guys with ham radio antennas, but they're always cruising down the
highway. Yeah, don't chase after them. Not a good thing.
I have to get a super magnet on the back of it and just toss it on the truck.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, hey, I just got an FYI. Paul said he'll be there in a minute. He just finished the day, so I'm sure he's packed with his skydiving stuff. So, he won't have to worry about doing something extra, but all good. He says on a quick side story, the same episode where you read my WinLink email, you were reviewing a random club website, and it so happened one of those sites reviewed was for my local club. I'm curious to see which club it was, because that was the episode. That was the GeoCities Wants My Ham Radio website back. So if you haven't a chance to go back and listen to that one, that was a good episode. We kind of, went into very detail, I would say, about, club websites and how bad they are and how they need to improve, to get out more in the hobby. So all good there. So he said that. Keep up with the good work, guys. And 7-3 Angelo. So, all right. Well, Angelo, again, congratulations on getting your extra, sir. It's awesome to hear. And I'm glad, you're able to, send that over to us and we're able to share with you. And so that deserves, an applause there.
Great job.
All right. So let's plug away here. So as we always like to get into, stop applauding here. Don't need that much. Let's get into our usual Ham Radio Week catch up. And so we've got two guests. So we're going to give them the floor first. So I'll start with Amy there. So in our usual format, we like to ask, what's been going on in your Ham Radio Week? How about you, Amy?
Oh, well, pretty much all I do in ham radio anymore is the SOTA. So, well, I can't say all. But I did 2 mountains yesterday. The bands were horrible. Very, very poor bands. The second one, I didn't even try HF. Just counted on the locals.
Okay.
I'm also this last week I'm trying to get a lot of our clubs. Okay, I live in a valley. I live in the Rogue Valley, so which is reference to the Rogue River that goes through here, and so we're surrounded by many mountains. And so there's a lot of repeater use. It's the simplex is a little bit difficult. But we've had a lot of new operators, and including some young people getting into ham radio. And I've been really pushing to get more locals to get on the calling frequency 14652 to just because that's where people usually start. And I've been hearing like these young boys call and call and call, and they're kind of tired of hearing me over and over, I think. So I put together this challenge last week to kind of put the clubs up against each other to keep track of their 5-2 contacts for the summer. And we'll like have a contest going because we have 3 different counties kind of side by side here. So that's trying to get people more on the calling frequency. So
that is pretty cool. I'm pretty impressed. That's awesome to see that, 5.2 around here is what we call the emergencies channel. You need to stay off 5.2 for more than 30 seconds. And we try to promote that similar, but that's actually a really good, way of doing it. I think that would be kind of cool to kind of start in the summertime because it's hard enough for repeaters to get people to talk on repeaters, but it's more so harder to even get on 5.2. So that's awesome. And so like, do you guys have how are they keeping track of points? It's just like for each contact as they make it's a point?
I just offered a spreadsheet for people to, it's each unique operator that they work, and kind of like in contests that if you work them on sideband, you can count it again, because we do have a pretty good sideband 2-meter CW group here. And I mean, that was sort of to try and get some of the old timers to be active in this too. I mean, I have no idea if it will take off or not, but it was just to try and get, I mean, we were taught sort of the same thing, don't call CQ on 5.2 and all that. But I break that rule because there's so little activity that then I've discovered up on the mountains where I can be reaching, 100 miles away and there's nobody listening. So, I mean, to really keep it as an emergency, you got to have people listening. And so that was my idea, is to just encourage people to make sure that it's in their scan, make sure that, when they go out mobile, call out, let people know you're there.
Now, do you guys use any of the new wilderness frequency protocol kind of stuff that George KJ6VU is kind of implementing, or have you played in any of that space at all?
I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, okay. So in that vein of 5.2 being the emergency channel, depending on what kind of part of the country you're in, it's either okay or it's shunned upon depending on when you get to use it. What I've learned is that George created this, or there was a group of people or a couple of individuals that created a series of frequencies, 140, let me see, I'm forgetting what it is. It's 146.58, I think it is, Wilderness Protocol.
I will clarify. I called it, the name of it is Battle of the Band. And
that's cool.
For just a 2-meter challenge. So people, it's not just for 5.2. It's just, I know that a lot of our newbies start there. And so like when we do our camp out here, we have 2 meters kind of on fire, but we aren't on 5.2 much because we're just too busy. That would kind of clog it up.
Right. Now, why am I unable to find George?
Talking about 5.2, I just missed an accident where a propane truck flipped over and blocked both sides of the highway, and I was kind of was kind of going up the highway. I was coming down so I could see it. So I got on 5-2, figured, maybe someone's in traffic, letting people know that, hey, if you're going to hit 93 after the tolls, get off because both sides of the highway are closed. And heard nothing. And then I went on a repeater that's pretty big around here. That's got a wide footprint. And Ryan, who is one of the he's been on this. He started the podcast with us. He was heading to Concord, and he's like, "Hey, thanks for the update." He goes, "I'll get off now and just drive by the back roads and bypass the whole thing." But it was funny that I could only get him on the repeater, but 5-2. I mean, with all that traffic backed up, there wasn't one person.
So I misspoke. It's actually not It was originally called the Wilderness Protocol, but George implemented the Adventure Radio Protocol. You heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so I just threw a link in the back channels there. It kind of describes it. And so basically what it is a one frequency, I think it's 146.58. Let me just grab it here. Why am I not getting there? Come on, pop up on George's website. Where did he? My gosh, he changed it all around again. He used to have a link there for it. Anyway, it's a 146.58, and in it is a bunch of different PL tones. And he set, depending on what frequency you set the PL tone to, the idea was you could key up, a CQ. So there was a CQ specific channel. There was a CQ. There was a emergency style channel. There was a back channel. So if you want to talk to each other, within a local comms area, you'd use that PL tone, and it was all in that same frequency. But the idea that you wouldn't interfere with someone who didn't have like just 5.2 wide open, but you could use all of those different PLs in a different way. So it was a pretty cool, kind of implementation, which I thought, from his standpoint, made a little bit more sense than just doing 5.2, because everybody's 5.2, and depending on which side of the country you're on, you could get into trouble, or some days everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm glad to make sure on 5.2. So yeah, it's one of those things. Okay, yes, I have 146.58, and so he's got 5 CT CSS tones. 67 hertz on that same channel is an emergency channel. 77 hertz is a ping, so you can just ping to see anybody's out there. The SOTA POTA is 88.5, and then there's the two for 100 and 123, which is the backcountry conversations, and a local repeater. And so, yeah, it's interesting. You might want to read a little bit more about it. I know a few folks have been we've tried to implement it around here, and I've got a lot of my mobile radios set that way, with the idea that you could tie this back into a repeater. And if you had an emergency, all you had to do is go to the emergency, hertz setting, CS tone setting, and that would key up a repeater that had a radio listening on the input, which would then transmit out to the radio, to the wider repeater. So you might be able to get a faster response for an emergency kind of scenario, or whatever. So it's an interesting kind of idea and strategy. So
yeah, it's definitely a cool idea. It's just got to get caught on, right?
Yep.
Get everyone doing it. It'll work.
Cool. Well, keep us updated on that. I'm curious to see how it goes. Well, I'll have to ping you back at the end of summer to see how it does. Because I know we usually do the 5.2 nights in summertime around here. Well, everybody gets on what they call the mountaintoppers, and they all call on 5.2. But that's like a one-time kind of thing. Every couple of months in summertime as an activity. But yeah, it'd be cool to see how that goes. So cool. All right. Well, with that, Paula, how was your ham to your week?
My week was primarily spent at the Dayton Hamvention. I came into town on Wednesday, which is 2 days before the official start. But I like to get in Wednesday evening and then spend Thursday. There's a lot of things to do in the greater Dayton area, in addition to the Ham Fest. So I usually spend Thursday indulging in those activities, and then hit the fest first thing on Friday. And Saturday, I did not go out this morning. I had pretty much seen everything that I wanted to see. I had a lot of fun this year. The B&B I've stayed at Dayton for like the last 20 plus years. 9 years ago, a German couple stayed in one of the other rooms, and my husband and I met them, and we drove them. I think it was the last day we drove them to the Ham Fest. So lo and behold, this year, they came. There's our parachute.
There's our Paul.
So I'll finish this story, and then I've got a question for Paul. This year they came for the Hamvention again. Only they weren't staying at the B&B, but they did. The B&B actually has a wine bar as part of it. One of the advantages of staying at B&B, and they came over to have some wine, and I happened to come back from my Thursday activities in time to catch them. So long story short, I ended up being able to provide them some transportation to and from the Hamfest, and we had some nice discussions along the way, and generally just a good time. It was one of those unexpected bonuses. So
Nice.
that's been my week. Now I have to ask Paul. I'm a licensed pilot, and the joke that I always there was a guy I worked with who was an avid shootist. He had owned his own, packed his own, everything. And when we would interview prospects, it would come up at some point, and I would say, I have no idea why Kevin jumps out of a perfectly good airplane.
Yep, that's the phrase.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead.
Oh, there we
We're
go.
good. We're good. All set.
So anyway, so that was my week. Basically, the Dayton Hamvention. Prior to that time, I had just come back about 10 days ago. I just come back from a 2-week camping trip that was all devoted to summits on the air.
Oh, wow, dude. Well, I'm curious to hear more about that for sure. And we're gonna dive in a heck of a lot more SOTA activities tonight. So buckle up, guys, if you're here and ready to dive into that. But awesome, cool. Well, in Dayton, I'm very jealous you're at Dayton right now still. So you've got to experience everything over there firsthand. Sounds like it was a great year, and weather held out well. So it definitely, I'm sure, it's going to give you a lot of great memories, and makes me a little jealous for sure.
Oh yeah. It worked out really well. I did a few more of the forums than I've usually done in the past, and that was all beneficial as well. It included the SOTA forum. It was a great forum on remote control of stations. I picked up a number of tips there, and there was one other. I thought there was one other forum I attended, but I'm drawing a blank right now. But those two alone, that was really very. Oh, I attended the Elecraft's K4 forum. I own a K4D for the home station, so
Oh, wow.
I wanted to attend that. Yeah, Bob N6 TV, or as we sometimes refer to him, TV Bob, it's just an incredible asset for Elecraft and the rest of us. He knows so much about those radios and about the K4. And one of the presentations during that forum was from Bob with an updated list of his tips and tricks for setting up and using the K4. And so he did a tremendous job. It's just an all-around great guy and just extremely helpful to the community.
Very cool. It sounds like, if you're now a question, real quick question. I assume your K4, at your remote station, are you using when you're out in the field on SOTA? K3, K2?
Yeah, K4, right.
not a K. I hope not, but
I've got that Sherpa, No, I'm typically using. I started out with a KX3, which I bought before the KX2 came out. I might not have owned a KX3 if the KX2 was available, but I still have it. I now use primarily a KX2 with the sidecar edition for electronic logging.
Ooh.
Which is a tremendous device if you do a lot of summits in a short period of time, because it saves you having to take paper logs and transfer them into an electronic format for upload.
That's amazing.
And when I want to be in a more stealth mode, or as I will be doing later this year, being on a backpacking trip, I'll use a KH1.
Awesome, dude. Now, the KH1, was that something you hand built, or is that kind of you bought from somebody else pre-built, or?
Elecraft is selling those as factory built. I don't think there's any kit versions available.
Oh, you can't get them kit versions anymore. Oh, okay. I always thought
I don't think they ever had them as. I mean, that's the radio they just released in the last year and a half or so.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking like the early K1.
Yeah, you're thinking of the KX1, I think.
Yeah, that's it, right? Yes, that's what I was thinking. You're correct.
KX1 is a even smaller profile, if you can believe it.
Yep. That's the one that kind of reads sort of like a walkie-talkie with the, the fold-out panel and everything. Got it.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. Got it. Now I got my Ks right finally.
Yeah, it gets confusing. It does.
Trust me, we all have those problems. We engineers, we love to mess things up by adding like letters and numbers after our radios. So, that's the way it goes. Cool. All right. Well, we're going to get into more SOTA in a second, but with that, let's drop it over to you, Todd. How is your ham radio week been, my friend?
Not very eventful. I've been very busy, and ham radio's kind of been on the back burner. But I heard the bands haven't been too good, so I guess I'm not missing much.
No.
Yeah, just a little repeater stuff. I've just been really busy with baseball and work. So things will quiet down in the next couple of weeks, and then it's going to be back to doing more POTA.
Sweet. Cool.
So,
all right. Well, so Paul, do you want to answer your ham radio week, or do you want to just go right into where's N1OG? Your call.
Well, so my ham radio week has been very light with ham radio, but I did find 2 parks that are within a half an hour drive. And so I am planning to activate Illinois, if you will.
Sweet. Watch out for those Nazis. Anyway, cool. Well, dude, that's awesome. So it is one of those the ham radio dude session or no?
So I'm not sure if he's going to come down for one of those 2 or if he's going to park in mine, but yeah, we're definitely going to do a combined with ham radio dude.
Very cool. All right. Well, so with that, we're going to just go right into our favorite episode here.
What's up with N1OG Now? A segment where we catch up with Paul on his travels.
All right. Okay. Well, with that, do us a brief update, my friend, because you've been doing a lot of skydiving because the weather gods have been in your favor for the past couple of days, correct? Is that is correct, right?
No. So actually, so I got to go Wednesday. Wednesday was technically a day off for everybody. But because the weather was so nice, we had a couple of instructors that came in. So I got 2 jumps in on Wednesday, and then I've been waiting to see if the trailer was going to like take flight on its own with the 30+ mile an hour winds that we've been having.
Oh no, dude.
Oh, it's been crazy windy. Yeah. But this morning, right? I got up at 6:30, and I looked out, and there's a little bit of sun, but it was a blanket of clouds. But there was no wind. And so I was like, all right, this will be great. Just got to wait for the clouds to dissipate. And so the drop zone sent out a message, and they said, yeah, it should be good by about 11 a.m. By 9 a.m., there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Ooh. So, yeah, so I got 3 jumps in today. Only one counted, towards progression, but I learned a lot. I'm getting much more stable in my free fall. I'm pulling the parachute at the right altitude, and I'm doing most of the things that I'm supposed to be doing. I need to relax. I'm a control freak, right? Like it's just me. I'm a control freak, and I don't like not having control. And so my 3rd jump today. What I needed to do was be stable in free fall, initiate a 90-degree turn in free fall, and then a 90-degree turn back, and then just maintain my heading and my altitude awareness. And I could not maintain my turn, and so I started to spin, and then the more I was spinning, the more I was tensing, and I was getting my body in all the wrong types of positions. Mm-hmm. Had I taken a breath, right, and just relaxed, I had plenty of altitude, but I was probably in the like 7,000 range at that point, but feeling out of control. I did what I was taught, which was to pull the parachute. Now, all right. So when I pulled the parachute, because of the way that I was twisting, I ended up turning on my side and then rolling over onto my back as the parachute deployed.
Oh.
And so the parachute actually went like completely around me.
Oh,
and I went through it. And so my risers were twisted, but the canopy inflated fully. I checked it for steerability and controllability, and I had steerability and controllability. But I mean, I was 7,000 feet up at that point, so I had a lot of canopy time today, which I mean, it wasn't bad. You know, I am looking forward to the day that I can just jump out at 13,800 and pull right away and just enjoy all of that canopy time. But I got to learn the free fall stuff, and so yeah, I need to relax. I need to breathe and just slow things down. But
So you were upside on your back, the parachute, and you went right through the string. So you were like one loop around.
Yep.
Holy crap, Paul! That's crazy. Were you thinking like I have to pull the release it and pull the back up?
So initially, yes, it did cross my mind that I was going to have to cut away. Dude, all right. So you'll have to wait for the video. But my left leg was actually over my head and through the risers.
my gosh, dude.
And the canopy was inflated, so I knew I was good. I didn't need to panic in that moment, but I was like, how do I unfuck this and get my leg out from over my head so that I'm where I'm supposed to be?
My God. Yeah, definitely.
I'm still trying to reconcile
Yeah.
the phrase control freak and parachuting. That's just not.
She's still on that part.
That's just not.
You know what's
Working
crazy,
on
Paul,
that.
is like that happens, right? Like it's like that would scare the crap out of me, and then you're like, yeah, I got to go back out there and fix this. Like that probably would have been like for me, like, yep, I'm good. Done this a lot. Not doing that again.
Yeah, well,
You know
I mean,
what those
the
things
thing
can
is,
do? Suck the paint off your house and give your family a permanent orange afro.
malfunctions are going to happen. So
That they will.
Well, I guess it's I mean, at least you're calm enough to analyze it and then make the right decision and get back down, safely. But I never realized it was so difficult when you're free falling. Because when you see videos and stuff, you just see those guys floating around and moving and upside down, and you don't realize how hard that is. I guess I always thought it was just like easy. Like once you jumped out of the plane, you just kind of put your arms out and you're good.
Just jumping out of a plane, no problem, right?
no, if you tense, right? So the analogy that was given to me was imagine a piece of sheet metal falling through the sky, okay, versus a sheet of paper. The sheet of paper is going to let the wind manipulate it, and it's going to float, and it's going to just let the wind do its thing. But the tense, sheet of metal, that's just going to fall. And so that's what I was doing with my body. I was tense, and I wasn't letting the wind carry me. And so, yeah.
Maybe you should have like an Ativan or something in mid-flight, pop it, and you'll be like, all right, I'm all relaxed now. I can do this. Or take one before you jump.
I don't think that's like encouraged at all at that level, Todd, just because of, cognitive, motor skills need to kick in somewhere along that process.
Well, they said if he gets whacked, don't you say that it pulls at a certain altitude anyway?
Yeah, okay, that's the emergency issue. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you don't want to rely on that. No,
That's not like an insurance policy. Yeah.
If you are still in free fall at like 1150 roundabouts, then the AAD will fire off and it'll put your reserve over your head. But by that point, you're falling so fast, you're still going to have a rough landing.
Yeah. How are your landings been?
Landings have been good, honestly. I mean, today I misjudged the wind. The wind was, a steady kind of 6-7 knots when we took off, and then because I spent so much time under the canopy, by the time I was ready for my landing, the wind had completely died, and so I had a lot more travel. Glide time than I had anticipated. So I kind of overshot my where I was supposed to land. But I landed in a nice, soft, empty cornfield, and it wasn't bad. I brought a bunch of souvenirs back with me.
Private property, like someone like a farm or something, or was it like the same property of where you're supposed to land?
So I was on the airfield, but there's a small cornfield on like that abuts it, and then there's a road that separates the other cornfields. And so I landed in the better cornfield, but yeah.
Oh man,
it'll make for some great videos.
No kidding. Wow. All right, man. Well, but I have to say, this is not going to be a dull moment whatsoever with you, is it?
No, not at all. This is going to be one hell of a ride.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you sharing those crazy, moments, and we're so glad that you got a level head about it, and you're still here to talk about them, because we would not want that to happen for sure. But keep plugging away, man. I'm sure you'll figure it out.
All week now, I'm going to be worrying, like, what did he do now? Like, is he inverted? He's hanging by his ankles or something.
Yep.
I always see those. You ever see those guys parachuting and they can do like the tricks and they do like the flips? Like that scares the crap out of me. Like when they go upside down, so the parachute is actually inflated, but it's under, and then they whip around. Like those.
Let's stop planting ideas in his head and let's just let him get his basics down first. Because apparently he wants to get his his stretching in while he's at like 7,000 feet. But my gosh, just where you were trying to describe where your ankle and leg was, I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, my joints are killing right now.
Oh, I'm sure I'll probably be a little stiff and a little sore tomorrow.
Yeah, you're not gonna be like my Gumby was when I was a kid. Anyway, cool. Well, that is awesome stuff as always. Good to hear. And we're rooting for you, man, and appreciate giving us the updates. And so. If you want to hear more, or you want to be able to chime in or ask a question, feel free to hit us up on all of our usual channels there to, leave a message for, Paul there, so cheer him on. And hey, if you want to help support him, definitely head over to livefreeandham.com, click that button, because my God, it's getting expensive every single day, I'm sure, for him. So, if you can help him out, definitely go over and, support his Patreon page, and support his, am I forgetting, what is it? Your GoFundMe.
The GoFundMe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's up on our website too, up on the top right-hand corner. So easy, quick access. So yeah, cool. All right. Well, with that, we are going to get into some really cool stuff tonight. So, we've been plowing fast through our usuals here, and, we're up to, our main topic tonight. So I'm looking forward to it, because we've been working with Amy for a while to try to kind of get this coordinated. I think when we reached out, it was way back in January. And so to kind of just set the, stage here a little bit, sometime in the January episode, or January January edition, thank you, of QST, this article came out about women in SOTA and this whole event. And I just was enthralled by the article, and I just was like, eating it up, and I was like, this is really cool. I'm like, I got to reach out to her. It sounds like, she's doing some really cool stuff. I'm always interested in having folks like that on our show. And, I want to promote, that aspect of, the hobby, because I feel like, every piece of the hobby is important, but more so like I do a little SOTA. Not even this is not even a true example of how much SOTA I actually do. Paul can contest to that. We've done one SOTA hike. He's one more than I have. So, I am not any stretch of the imagination when I say I'm into, a SOTA or SOTA goat, but we got some we'll say professionals, experts, ladies out of all the benches that can probably rival me, and walk circles around me, with all the mountains they do on a daily basis. We're here tonight to share, both stories from Amy and Paula. And so we're going to do a little introduction with them. They're going to talk a little bit about their background and how they kind of got into ham radio and SOTA itself, and then talk about more of the whole YL experience, because I think there's a bunch of ladies in our community here that they all they do POTA, they do ham radio activities, and I want to have them inspired. I want to be able to kind of expand that reach, because I feel like it's super important that we really shine some light on some really good aspects of the hobby, and just bring that more to the foreground, because it just gives more people more opportunities to be able to just get in and have some fun. So with that, we're going to start, and I'm going to introduce Amy first. So Amy Happenstall, Alpha Golf 7 Golf Papa. Go ahead, Amy. Maybe so. Tell us a little bit about your kind of story of ham radio and where you kind of got up to this point into SOTA, and then we'll hand it over to Paula and do a little introduction with her, and then we can kind of talk more about the YLs and SOTA and stuff like that. So floor's all yours.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, I've been licensed since 2017, and I mainly got into ham radio because we have some off-grid property, and my husband and I needed a way to communicate with each other. But I took a course. A local club did a course for getting licensed, and I was just really inspired by the magic of HF. I really wanted to learn more. And so kind of immediately after I got licensed, I got into portable. My first portable activation was the Total Eclipse. I went up north to the Totality and with my cousin and set up my station. And I had only been licensed for 2 months, but it was that led to Worldwide Flora and Fauna and Parks on the Air, which was fairly new and not very popular over here in the West Coast yet. And so that was like 2018, and eventually it led me. I had a lot of people bugging me. Well, you should try SOTA. You should try SOTA, but it's like, I don't know if I can hike these mountains. It wasn't. I'm a very outdoorsy person, but never the summiting. And I really didn't think that I could do it. And, but once I did that one, I was hooked. And because it's just SOTA here in the West Coast is, well, I'll tell you, my first one, I made the mistake. I took all my POTA gear. So I climbed up a mountain with, 25, 30 pounds of gear. And also I was just starting CW. And 100 watts, one of your first CW, not a good idea. Well, because I was used to, here on the West Coast for doing parks, you had to be able to reach at least the Midwest, usually the East, in order to get enough contacts. Because there just wasn't anybody really chasing here in the West. And so when I combined it with a SOTA, I just couldn't believe it, like how much came out from under the woodwork, how many people were doing it here. And so that was pretty much my start. I was just hooked. I downsized, and I was just inspired by the operators, the support, just the team effort in SOTA is, I just don't experience it to that level in any other ham radio community that I've been involved with. I think partly because it's, with SOTA, it's more than just getting on the air. There's a lot of safety. There's survival stuff. You have to be pretty prepared. And I've learned so much about, I'm typically a solo hiker, and people think I'm crazy at times, but it's like, I kind of like it, but I wouldn't have done that if I wouldn't have had the support and kind of guidance of what to bring, what not to bring. And it's it incorporates a lot of the outdoors too. I do a lot of birding and mushroom hunting, and so there's never a dull moment. It's the radio at the top of the mountain is kind of just the bonus.
Yeah, it's icing on the cake kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to ask the question. Obviously, you said you started, at the 25-pound pack level. What radios were you bringing up with you?
At the time, MK2G, the ICOM MK2G, and I had a BioEno battery. So that was a bit lighter than a car battery, but still a clunker. And then my first few, I still, let's see, I think I was using a Wolf River coil. It was quite a pack. And then I went from that down to a mountain topper.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So that was definitely a big jump from, going from a Wolf River coil. Wow. I never thought that you're actually probably the first SOTA person I think I ever heard bring a Wolf River coil up there. Most of the guys and folks I've talked to is like they're throwing up random wires or whatever, but that's impressive. I give you kudos for doing that. Mm-hmm.
That was what I had. And also, like I say, it was I was used to doing parks, and this was also a park. I was in the Cascades-Siskiyou National Monument. And so, I didn't think it was going to be significantly different. I thought that that's sort of what I would need to be heard. And I was wrong.
So you subscribe to what us POTA folks really love. We 100 watts the way to go. I mean, none of this, 10, 20 watts. It's like 100 watts. You're going to hear us no matter what. That's the way it goes. So, okay. Impressive. Oh, cool. Okay. So you started, obviously in that sense and realized that you can't, hike a 25-pound pack, up and down the mountain. So do you still continue to stay with the same radio and you just downsize your batteries and your antenna, or did you just switch gear out altogether?
I switched a lot of gear, I was at the time working on code. And so switching to the mountain topper really, that's a big step, to take only a CW radio. You have no choice but to operate it. And, there's no backup sideband. And so that was what I used for quite a while. But then I also have KX2. I mainly have been using the KX2. Well, another thing is the bands, in 2019, the solar cycle was still pretty dead. Mm-hmm. And so the 2040, those were the bands that you use. We didn't have 15 and 10 open yet. And so as those opened, I kind of migrated more to the KX2.
Now, did you, when you got back in, or when you started in the hobby in 2017, did you go right to your general, or did you just start your SOTA kind of progression at technician?
I'm actually an instant extra, and but I don't want that to fool anybody.
Todd is not here to hear this. My gosh, he is not here. He would just be like, oh, you literally flew through all three tests. Wow.
People think that I might know something with that, but it was actually, I took a class that focused on passing your tech in general at the same sitting. And I got really sick the week before, and I was so sick of this class, to be honest with you. And people were saying, you're going to forget half of it in 6 months anyways, and stuff like that. And so I thought, I'm just going to go on hamstudy.org and see what all I can get and memorize as much as possible, learn later. And because I had a week at home being sick and nothing to do. And that's my extra knowledge. I mean, it's pretty minimal.
Dude, that's impressive. I don't think I had the stamina to go through all three of those. I mean, obviously I got my technician way early on, but the general, just once I got through at the COVID stage, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for extra. And then I was like, all right, you got to do a little later just to get it off the plate kind of thing. But dude, I applaud you. That's impressive. All right, cool. All right, well, so you got any questions, Paul? You want to throw it to Amy there? Well, before we hand it over to Paula.
Well, so I was just curious. So I lived in Central and Southern Oregon for 3 years, and the eastern part of the state is absolutely beautiful, and the coast is absolutely beautiful. The center's kind of boring. But so I'm just curious, like, what's like your favorite places in the Cascades to go? Because I mean, you're talking that's a good range.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Where did you live in Oregon? In Southern Oregon.
I lived in Corvallis, and I lived in Grants Pass in Medford.
Okay, because I live in Phoenix, which is
Yep.
5 miles south of Medford.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Favorite. That's a tough one. I mean, I really like the mountains here surrounding the Rogue Valley. The Siskiyou Crest, which you might be familiar with. I mean, it kind of goes over towards Grants Pass and part of the Klamath Mountains. Siskiyou Mountains are kind of part of the Klamath Mountains, and but I love the Eastern Oregon desert. I mean, that's what we were saying before you came on board. Oregon, especially Southern Oregon, it's a pretty unique location to where it's just a drive to whatever you want, from the ocean to the desert, and everything in between. And but I'm a mountain person, a tree. I like being in the woods. I'm not much of an ocean person, so it's pretty much from the Cascades east is where I am.
Love it.
Very cool.
Paul, are you also in Central or Southern Oregon?
I am not.
Chicago.
I'm in the big flyover region.
Okay, you're not far from where I am currently then.
Oh, where are you currently?
Rochelle, Illinois.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I'm just probably close to an hour. I live close to an hour east of where you are. You're just south of Rockford.
Yep.
Which is a larger city up in the north, kind of the north central part of the state. And this guy I mentioned who I worked with, who was jumped every weekend when the weather was good. He actually moved out to Colorado, but I think he used to go out your way. There's probably a few other people I know of that you may have intersected with, or at least knew at one point they may have moved that would jump from that area.
Yeah, so I'm at Chicagoland Skydiving Center, that's one of the biggest ones around. So
super. Well, I'll be home tomorrow. Come on over and visit.
All right, we'll go do a POTA if the wind's too high.
Yeah, there you go.
I wanted to mention to Paul, if you ever tone it down a little, this right outside of town here. Well, you're familiar with Jacksonville, Rouge?
Yep.
Okay. Woodrat Mountain. Woodrat Mountain is a international paragliding place, and it's actually, I got it added to POTA, and it's one of the best places to activate POTA. You're up on cliff. You're up on the takeoff cliff for the paragliding events, and just anybody who's paragliding. And you get to land in a cow pasture instead of the cornfields.
I know, right? Different change of scenery.
Watch out for
watch out where you step. Right, exactly. Yeah. Very cool. All right, well, so let's kind of transition to Paula there. So Paula, thank you again for coming. Paula Ushan, K9IR. I got the last name right?
Yeah, you should.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Awesome. So, thank you for coming on. So give us a little bit of your background, your story, and, how you got into ham radio and take it from there.
Okay. Thanks very much for inviting both of us to join you all. It's a fun place to be. I was first licensed in 1976. I saw a sign for a license class at university. It was my last quarter. I thought, oh, this will be something fun. This is something I wanted to do years back. I'm going to kick back my last quarter at school. So I attended the class. This was back in the days where they had the novice license level, which you held for a year with CW only privileges. The instructors administered both the code test, it was a 5-word per minute test, as well as the written test. So the first day of class, they gave us the code. The second day the second day that we went, it was once a week.
Now,
they tested us.
Was that an FCC center or no?
No. This was on campus. This was two guys. Okay. One of the fellows helping run the class was a local ham who lived in Chicago. The other guy was an MBA student at the same university who had been a ham for a number of years. And so they knew each other, and they ran this class on the campus. I think we probably had a classroom somewhere in the tech center that we were able to use for this purpose. So, 5 words per minute is, at least to me, is a speed where, you can actually run through the inventory of all the letters and numbers in your head between each character and figure out what it is. So I passed the test. I either didn't pay attention or they just sprung it on us by surprise. But the written test wasn't until actually school was done for the year. And I remember the guy from Chicago came over to my house with the written test, and he proctored it. And then I had to wait 3 months for the results to come in. And I think I finally got my license like 3 days before I started law school, which was not a great timing because, talk about not having any time for anything. But I somehow managed to make the time to get on the air. I mentioned the novice was only good for a year. If you didn't upgrade, you lost everything. So I get the license in August. In March, I go down to the FCC office. So, talk about way back in the Stone Age. Went to the FCC office and took a 13-word per minute code test at that point to get the general license. And at that point, they didn't allow you to pass a particular element and come back and get the other one. To put it another way, if you flunked the code test, you went home. You didn't get to take the written. So I take the code test, and there's a bunch of guys waiting in the lobby and me. And the FCC, I thought, was a little bit insensitive. They came out periodically and said, Mr. So-and-so, you did not pass. Mr. So-and-so, you did not pass.
Oh, that hurts.
That hurts. I know. That hurts. And of course,
public embarrassment.
Yeah, the shame.
I know. Shame. Where's the bell? Shame.
It's going to be me, Mr. Newman.
What are the chances I pass this thing? But I did. And then I sat for the written and I passed that. And I knew this because I had brought my Nye Viking straight key with me. I knew that they might ask to test me on sending. And sure enough, they did. And I will say, I could send really, really fast with a straight key. I probably had the distance between the contacts, you might not even have been able to fit a piece of paper through it.
Wow.
So I start ripping through that, and after about 10 seconds of that, they had enough. So I had upgraded a general. I had to go down to the FCC office to go to the advanced class license. That was a test only, no code element. I finally was part of the VE program when I upgraded to extra. And I had to pass the 20-word per minute code test at that point. This would have been, I think, in 90 or 91, I want to say, maybe 1990. And then a written test as well. And so that's how I ended up with the license class that I have now. And in that time when I first started operating, I eventually gravitated towards DX. And that's been a common theme throughout. I'm a pretty avid DXer, and my home station is built to optimize my ability to work DX. Mm-hmm. But around 2014, I started chasing SOTA. I don't remember how I became aware of summits on the air, but I did. And I started just chasing people who were operating from summits. In 2016, October, I finally activated my first summit. So I've been activating for about the last 9-10 years.
Wow.
And so I do everything from QRO with DX to QRP with.
You probably were doing so much DX that when you heard this Why doesn't it sound like a contest reply back that you were like, I got to answer this, and that's you were like, this is refreshing. This is different.
Absolutely. It's so to me, it sort of combines two things that I love to do. I love operating radio, and I like being in the outdoors. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it's a perfect combination of activities. To do SOTA effectively for me really requires me to stay in shape, quite candidly. So I belong to a hiking club in the Chicago area. We hike anywhere from 8 to 12 miles every Sunday. I hike in addition to that. And in fact, a lot of my earlier SOTA activity, once I got my first few done, when you live in the Midwest, believe it or not, there are summits in all 3 of the 9 area states, and even in Iowa. There's like 5 states that don't have any summits. But of course, they're not necessarily at the same altitude as a lot of the summits, say, in Colorado or New Hampshire, for example. Right. But I'd like to see if I could, maximize my opportunity whenever I was near several summits, try to work as many as I could in a day. And I started thinking of that type of approach to summits on the air as being very similar to biathlon, where you cross-country ski to a particular location, and the speed is important. And then you take off your gear, you take a rifle, and you shoot at a target for accuracy at a great distance. And then you don all your gear and you go to the next target location. For me, it was hiking to a summit, setting up my radio, operating from there, hiking back down, going on to the next summit, rinse, repeat for as many as you could in a single day. And the term I coined for that is biathlon for geeks. So if you Google that, you will find, and especially if you Google that phrase and like the word Outside Magazine, you will find an online article written by a fellow, it came out post-COVID, so it probably came out 2019, 2020. And I think that's the secondary title in his article. It's Biathlon for Geeks. But he interviewed several SOTA participants, and wrote this great article that, I think if somebody that wasn't involved with it read it, they'd go, oh, wow, this sounds so cool. I'd love to do it. And in fact, we get a lot of people. I came to SOTA already being a ham, but there's a fair number of people in SOTA that come to it from being in the outdoors. They're avid outdoorsmen. They've been doing tons of stuff for decades. And then they find out about this radio stuff and they're like, oh, wow, I'm going to add that into what I'm doing. And there's quite a few very active operators throughout the country that have come to Summits on the Air and to ham radio through that route.
Yeah. It's impressive.
A lot of search and rescue people, that incorporated the radio into it due to being in search and rescue.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a few guys that we're talking about. My gosh, I'm just dropped. Red Summit RF is he doesn't do the emergency side of stuff, but who am I thinking of that's over in California? You're
thinking of Adam, K6ARK?
Yeah, K6ARK, that's who I was thinking of. Yeah. So, yeah,
Adam definitely has that background. And there's another gentleman out in California that was at one of the SOTA campouts, the first SOTA campout I was at. And I am drawing a blank on his call sign, but he flew from California to participate in this campout in southwestern Virginia. And he also had been involved with search and rescue. Actually, somebody in Connecticut, and I'm so embarrassed, I'm going to get his call sign wrong. His name is Paul. I want to say, November 1, Zulu Fox.
Okay.
He is very active with Summits on the Air, and he actually has wilderness medicine training.
Wow.
And I mean, not the basic course. I've taken the basic course. No. He's gone well beyond that. So he is definitely qualified. So I think he had been a ham already, but nevertheless, he combined those.
So just a question with you.
Sorry.
when you're going up and down, when you're doing you're going up and down summits, what's your max number that you've achieved so far? Like what's your overall record for yourself?
You're talking about in one day?
In a day, yeah.
In a day. I think I've done 7 in one day.
Holy crap.
7? You've hiked 7 mountains?
7 mountains in one day. That's impressive.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, let me put it in perspective. So there are a number of summits. In fact, I would say the majority of them, you have to hike some distance to get there. There are some summits that we call drive-ups, where you literally can drive to the summit location. Now, unlike POTA, we have to set up our stations in a way such that you could drive the car away, but not drive part of the station away. Okay? So our setup has to be totally independent of the vehicle, commercial, power sources, all of that. We basically have to carry all that stuff in. So it does help when you're activating a number of summits in one day if some of those are either short hikes and or drive-ups. And the day I did that, I actually did it up in Wisconsin. And I probably put over 300 miles on the car that day because while there are the most number of summits out of the 3 states in the 9 call area, the vast majority of summits are in Wisconsin. That said, there's a fair amount of distance between most of them. And so you're doing a lot of driving in order to hit them. I think I had originally targeted doing something like 8, and it just got too late in the day. And I was actually on Zulu time going into the next day, so it technically wasn't going to count anymore anyway. But I did 7 that day.
I thought you had to hike into all the summits because we have a mountain. We have a mountain here, Packman-Adnock, and you can hike it.
Yeah.
Or you could drive it.
Yeah.
So
you can do a drive up, and I suppose technically you can. I mean, you're going to be doing some hiking anyway, just to set up your station because you're going to be away from the car, and right. So you have you go you're at the summit top. Some summits they're drive ups, but they might be 8-9 mile drives on gravel roads. So as a practical matter, you're probably not going to. You could hike it. There's no question about it. You could drive part of it and try to find an area that would be safe to park and hike up the rest of it. And then there's other drive ups where you clearly could hike the entire distance, like in a state park, for example. Right. But it's also a legitimate approach to drive all the way to the summit or to what we call the activation zone, which is an area defined as within 82 vertical feet of the summit itself. And then activate from there. Set up your station.
Now, what makes like like Parks has a list? Like, is there a list of summits on the air or SOTA mountains, or is it any mountain?
There is a list, and it's in a database. There is information, detailed information about every summit. It's latitude and longitude. It's height in either feet or meters. It's designators. So like with POTA, there's a designator for every location, for every park. There is a format that Summits on the Air follows to designate and distinguish one summit from another. The essential concept in understanding what qualifies as a summit and what does not is a mountaineering concept, very well-known term for mountaineers called prominence. So you could have some very tall summits, but not all of them may qualify for summits on the air because either relative to each other or their surroundings, they don't have sufficient prominence. Most SOTA associations around the world require, I believe it's 150 meters of prominence. There are some that define it as 100 meters. So to give you an example, the tallest point in the state of Illinois is not a summit. If I showed you a picture of it, you would say that's the tallest point because there's not even a slope to it. It's just the highest point. And probably if you walked a mile from it, the difference in elevation would be negligible. But that's the highest point. The actual summits in Illinois are much farther south in the state, and they're more or less a continuation of the Ozark range that's in Missouri and Arkansas. If you look at a map, you'll see they pretty much follow the same latitude. And I think the same with Indiana for the most part. Whereas the ones in Wisconsin follow some different mountain ranges that also go into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I think they're called the Peconies in one state, and they're referred to by another term in the other state.
Now, are there some, like we have now parks, all over the world? Are there summits all over the world?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was actually an activity that was started in 2001 in England. Mm-hmm. And it really took off in Europe quite a bit, and then, of course, stateside as well. There are summits, but there also needs to be an association. So to give you an example, I just learned attending the SOTA forum at Dayton that someone went to American Samoa, Kilo Hotel 8, and wanted to activate there and realized there was no association there. So long story short, he contacted the management team for Summits on the Air, and he actually became the association manager for KH8. And then he was able to activate at least one summit over there. There's a summit on Bouvet Island, which is a very, very rare DX entity to work. In fact, there will be an operation. There's an operation at least planned from Bouvet next year in February, probably the February-March timeframe. I don't know that they're going to be able to get to a summit there, but I know some of the guys who are on the team, and I'm definitely going to put the bug in their ear the same way I did for the last Bouvet operation, just in case.
I know. Like, you don't need one more thing on their list, right? They had a tough time getting on the island already.
If you read about the last few operations from there, you talk about, Amy mentioned hazard, and this is independent of Summits on the Air. There are de-expeditions that involve potential hazard and concerns as well. And Bouvet is definitely one of them. I mean, you could be locked into that island because of ice flows, and you're not coming off. I mean, unless they can chopper you off or something. The weather there is crazy, absolutely miserable. So there is some high risk involved. I'm not holding my breath for SOTA from there, but it's an example of where there is a summit there. We just don't have an association because nobody inhabits that island in the normal course, except for a special trip.
I'll mention that just this is also an example of people who combine SOTA with their other activities. N6RUN, Sarab, he's been working on the 7 summits, the 7 high points of the continents, and just a few days ago he completed Everest.
Oh, he did.
And, oh my gosh!
Activated on top of Mount Everest.
He hiked to the top of Mount Everest. He completed it, and but it's not a SOTA because there's no association. And I think that one of our regulars did reach out to try and make it, although the chance of operating up there are pretty slim. But
did he operate from there?
No. Okay. But it was really neat. It was also a good example of the support involved. I mean, he offered his GPS, a link to his Garmin. So here stateside, we were keeping track of him that night. I mean, this was just like Sunday night, I think, or I'm sorry. Anyway, it was just a few days ago. And, watching each little post of each little GPS spotter, and everybody's rooting for him, seeing him on the top of Everest.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Like, looking at his QRZ page, his last post was Mount Diablo, 1,173 meters, 2 points, 13 QSOs. 13 QSOs, my friend. We complained at the POTA level that we barely crushed 13 QSOs, and this guy's up on the top of freezing cold depths of mountains. 13 QSOs are amazing. Wow, that's impressive. Holy moly!
Isn't there a park that's like up in space, like on the space? Isn't the space station a park? I think it is. Oh, I think it is. No, I really do. I think there is. There's some
kind of your news.
What?
Where do you get your news? I'm curious, my friend.
I'm going to look it up. It's like one guy did it. Like one astronaut was into POTA, and I don't know. I'm almost positive it's a park.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. I'm curious to see who's the first timer for activating that park.
I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe it was a dream I had.
Okay, man. Space. Hey, why not? We could have a space force. We could have a space POTA parks. All good. So, Amy, have you done something similar? Like, do you have like an all-time record in terms of most mountain peaks in a day, or?
Well, I haven't kept track really.
A modest person. Okay.
Probably, I probably 5 is probably as many as I've done. But yeah, it's some of us. There's actually a guy in California that I think that he literally keeps track of his points per gallon. In the California area, it's a lot of one-pointer Bay Area, and so there's argument of the fairness of the point system and stuff, but yeah. So you know, when you're driving a couple miles, you got to get your points per gallon.
So that's always been a kind of a rub for me, especially with like in the park system. I mean, of POTA in general, there's no real points per se, but you know, if you're a paper chaser, you basically just got to get a minimum 10 for each park. I know it's obviously lower for SOTA, but who came up with that point system? Because I was like, when I first started to look into the SOTA's program, I'm like, man, it's going to take me a long time to like get to goat at goat's 1,000, right? Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. So 1,000 points is a long way to go. If you have 1-pointers everywhere you live, that's like painful. And like you get bonuses here and there, but you know, is that something you just strive for or no?
There are volunteers. I think that put in the effort. I don't know exactly how it was done. I mean, I know who did it for our region and on the West Coast, and he did a great job. And I think part of it is based on your average, the average elevation of the state. Like one example, maybe Paula can give some more details on this, but I believe that when SOTA started, that New Mexico and Texas were the same association. And so they had that and I think Oklahoma. And so it was averaging it all. And it made it to where New Mexico, I don't think that they have a mountain below 6 points and very few below 8. If I recall correctly, I haven't really checked into it too closely, but because of that average, because then they separated, the association separated, but they kept the points the same.
Oh, interesting.
So
okay.
Yeah.
I think the general idea, and I did not get involved early enough to be aware of the specifics when the whole system was spun up originally, because not every state came up at the same time. And as Amy mentioned, there were some states that were combined in a single association. But I think the general idea has been that the points allocated to any one summit reflect not the difficulty of getting to the summit, but are more tied to how high the summit is. So a higher summit has more points, a lower summit has fewer. Now, that said, you may have some 1-pointers there, Eric, that are higher than my 6-pointers in Wisconsin. I mean, I haven't looked, but that's a possibility. And I think that ties into Amy's point of looking at what the general elevation is throughout the state. And I'm sure there was something more than just arbitrariness that went into that decision. There are some people, I've heard of some people, and they generally come from the western states where things are a lot taller and more challenging, who have suggested that with some seriousness that, SOTA should be reevaluated, and it really should only be, stuff over a certain altitude and this and that. I understand that. I think it would, I think there are still challenges. I mean, the summits in the Midwest probably don't top 2,000 feet, but do them in February, and believe me, you will get a workout.
Yeah.
You will want to plan. You will want to plan and be careful, because if you're not, they won't find you until the spring.
Yeah.
I'm really serious about that. So, but it's not the hazard. It's not the difficulty. It's the relative height. So I have some sympathy with that. I just think it misses, I think, the bigger point of Summits on the Air, which was to provide a reasonable way of of defining summits as widely as we can so that
Right.
we encourage the maximum amount of participation. I mean, it was not until the last 5 years that, believe it or not, lo and behold, 2 summits sprouted in Iowa, which, believe it or not, is not nearly as flat as most of Nebraska. I think there are some summits in Nebraska, but like more in the Scottsbluff area.
Mm-hmm.
But they have two in Iowa. But I think, again, it's an effort to reasonably expand that part of the hobby to encourage participation as much as possible.
Is there a summit in every state?
No.
No.
So
No, there are 5 states, I believe, that do not have summits.
Yeah,
Rhode Island, Florida, surprise.
That's what I was thinking. Florida,
Louisiana, I think Kansas and Delaware might be the other 2. I have that in a presentation somewhere, but I don't offhand remember if I've got that whole list correct. But there are 5 states without any.
Yeah, because that really kind of, you think like Florida is a pretty populated state that takes a lot of participation away if you're living in Florida unless you travel.
Well, and Eric, to your point where you say you've got all these one-pointers, I mean, a couple of years ago at Dayton, I was at a dinner where a guy became aware I was doing SOTA, and that I had, I don't know if I had 1 or 2 mountain goats at that point. But he said to me, "How do you do that from the Midwest?" And my answer to him was, I smiled, I said, "Lot of travel."
Yeah.
Well, I'll mention that, a couple of our top chasers, which I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but 1,000 points of chasing gets the title of shack sloth.
Yep.
And we have many shack sloths, and, they're just as important. And 2 of our top in, North America, if not the world, live in Kansas.
Yeah.
W0MNA, Gary, and W0ERI, Martha, their husband, wife, and they're a couple of our most reliable chasers. And they actually did get their mountain goat, but there's not a single mountain in Kansas.
Yeah. It's funny. N6ARA did a presentation. I can't remember where it was. Maybe in California for a club, and he generated a couple of AI images of shack sloths and mountain goats, and they were pretty cool. So I was like, yeah, that was definitely worth putting on a shirt.
So Eric, there is a you should, if you're interested, and Todd as well, and Paul when he's back home,
not flying,
not jumping out of airplanes and getting tangled up in his chute. Reach out to Bob, Alpha Charlie 1 Zulu. Bob actually hosts an annual W1 campout, conveniently for you guys, in New Hampshire.
Oh,
and I've gone to it once because it's almost a 2-day plus drive. It's 2 days of hard driving for me to get there from where I live. But some of the most challenging hiking I have ever done was those summits in New Hampshire. And these were not one-pointers either.
Nope.
I joked with Bob. I said,
Corsage.
Did the eastern part of the country forget about the concept of switchbacks? You start hiking, and not only that, but you start out and it's a little bit flat, maybe a slight incline, and then suddenly it's like somebody installed the elevator, except it's not motorized. Mm-hmm. And you're headed straight up, and not just for a mile or so. There's a lot of summits in the southeast part of the country, in North Georgia, in Virginia, in Tennessee, in North Carolina, where you may have a steep incline, but, many of them are a mile and a half, 2 miles. No, in New Hampshire, minimum 3 miles one way in this agony. And then heaven forbid if it rains. I remember coming down off of one summit where it started raining when we were operating up top. And as we walked back, everything was just slippery as can be with the rock.
Oh, yeah.
The tree
Granite
roots
sucks for water. Yep.
Grabbing your boots. And I remember thinking to myself, please just let me get back in one piece. Please. I think just a year or so before then, I'd actually broken an ankle in the Upper Peninsula hiking to a summit. And I thought at the time I just had very, very badly sprained it. So I spent the rest of the week hiking to all these other summits I had planned to do, and made some changes so that, I wasn't going to injure my ankle anymore. When I got home, a friend of mine said, "You really should get that checked out." And I did. They x-rayed it, and it was broken. But, so you got to be careful. But so I was coming down off of this one in New Hampshire thinking, I don't want to do this again. But so you've got some high pointers there. I mean, you've got a lot of really challenging high point summits that I don't want to say they're in your backyard, but they're a heck of a lot closer to you than the closest summits I have.
You can go anywhere in New Hampshire within a 2-hour drive.
Yeah.
We have Mount Washington, which is the highest peak on the East Coast. And when I was in high school, I didn't know you could drive up it. And my buddy and I decided to hike up it. And it was August. And we got we're just about getting over the tree line. And they're like little trees, like maybe a couple feet.
Yeah.
And a cloud came over. It started snowing and sleeting and raining. And all of a sudden, and the fog came in, you couldn't see anything. And I literally was grabbing onto this tree, and water was rushing over my head. I'm like, I'm going to die. And then it blew by, it was over with. And the sun clears, and we were literally 100 feet from this cabin, which is like a rest area right before you get to the summit. And I see a truck down there, and I'm like, wow, they must have helicoptered a truck. And then I get to the top, and there's all these tourists, all these kids running around. I was like, you could have driven up this thing. The one thing I remember about that hike was you start going vertical, and they had logs embedded into the earth,
the hillside,
a ladder. And I remember on all using my hands and feet climbing up to these just to get over this hump. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, Mount Washington, of course, is notorious for the variable weather that can be encountered if you hike up there. And there's many people that have been either severely injured or lost their lives because they did either made a bad decision to go out that day because they didn't check the weather, or they were not prepared for what could happen. I mean, I'm astounded here sitting thinking, snow in August, that place really is dangerous.
Yeah, it happens.
They say Mount Washington has one of the harshest conditions. It also has, I think it has the record for the top winds in the earth, on Earth.
It does.
And it can get pretty. They send scientists up there, and they stay up there in the winter, and those guys try to come out, and they can barely they're strapped in, and it just ices over, and there's snow and ice on it. I'd say probably 10 months out of the year, at some point. Maybe July, August it's not, but by end of September, October, it's back to snow.
Right. There's also some big summits not too far off in Pennsylvania, in upstate New York. Also some pretty challenging stuff there. On my way to this camp out for W1, I stopped and camped a couple of nights in New York and did some summits. Now, granted, it was raining again. It was this whole system that got caught up in the northeast part of the country. But, there were some challenging hikes there, too. So,
I got a question. All right. So, knowing only about summits in New Hampshire, having not done summits anywhere else, there's a couple that I've been looking at where you could easily make it a couple days where you hike one summit and then you go ridgeline to ridgeline, and you can get maybe 3. But I mean, you're talking about miles and miles and miles. So when you guys are going up and doing your summits, what are you looking at, standard kind of mileage of what you're actually hiking?
Amy, you want to take a shot at that first?
Oh, I mean, around here, there's a lot of variables. I mean, they're like Paul was saying, we have plenty of drive ups. The 2 that I did yesterday were both drive ups. Both of them have equipment up there, like radar dome and lookouts and stuff. And but then we also have, we have so much public land in Oregon. It's more than half public land. So, and a lot of it is wilderness. If it's wilderness, there's no roads. So I would say that my average, just because of my choice and my limits, I'd say is probably 3 or 4 miles round trip. But there are plenty out there that are probably 12 or so round trip. I mean, there's many, like what you're talking about with going mountain to mountain. There's some great areas within the wilderness areas, or like you might remember Grayback Mountain, like Grants Pass.
Yeah.
It's the high point of Josephine County. There's a great trail called the Boundary Trail that goes from Grayback. You go up Grayback, and there's a cabin up there. There's, it's all mining country, old gold mining. And the Boundary Trail goes up basically at the saddle, just below the saddle of all those mountains, clear into California. So that's one thing that I've had on my list of thinking of doing, is doing at 3 mountains in a couple days there.
I think part of the answer to your question depends on what kind of terrain you're dealing with. So a summit, to access a summit where there may be 2 or 3 miles of hiking, but it's a gradual ascent, is very different from, one that's got a very steep ascent, is very different from one that's got a lot of up and down before you finally get to the summit. The longest one I've done, I think, was actually a 12-mile round trip in Missouri. There's an area in Missouri that's actually a great place to go activate summits, partly because it's just beautiful. You're on and off the Ozark Trail there, and the summits are actually geographically fairly close to each other. So it's a little bit easier to drive from summit to summit to, knock off 2 or 3 in a day. And the one that has the 12-mile round trip is called Prophet Mountain. At the time I did it, there was only one other person who had activated it at the time, and I suspect part of the reason was the distance. And I remember doing some research on this one because I had taken a trip down to this part of Missouri, which is like an hour south of St. Louis, and found a lot of references to the trail having a lot of ankle rollers. So there's a fairly dense leaf cover just from leaves that have fallen from the trees, and apparently a lot of rocks underneath. And this was like 4 months after I had broken my ankle. So I was already pretty well rehabbed, but I was still occasionally wearing a foot brace. So I thought to myself, do I really want to do this? Ankle rollers, probably not a great idea. But I thought, let's try it. Let's get out there on the trail, because you've probably seen this happen before. Somebody describes something, and if you don't know that somebody, they might be describing it in a way that you would agree with or that you would disagree with. And the only way to know for sure is to go out yourself. So I went out there and I started the hike early in the day so I would have enough time to complete it. And it actually wasn't bad at all. And part of the reason that I could do it is, while there was some elevation gain and loss, it wasn't huge. I wasn't doing like 2,000 feet up and 3,000 feet down. Okay. So that makes a big difference as well. And so I think, what you need to do, and what I often do, at least when I'm planning what summits I want to do, is I'm going to look at how much elevation gain and how quickly that occurs. Is it, 1,000 feet in half a mile, or is it 1,000 feet over 2.5 miles? That makes a big difference in the decision that I make and how many I might do, or how long it's going to take me to do that one.
Another big factor for my area, and I didn't realize that there was such a difference between like Southern Oregon and some of the other areas of Portland, Seattle, but there's no trails here really. And so when you don't have a trail, like I can, like an 8-miler on a trail, that's probably fine for me, but you could have a 1-miler straight up, no trail through the bushes. It's just as hard.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And I think part of the challenge with those is because you don't have a trail. I learned this almost the hard way activating out in Nevada. So, you may have a trail that goes so far and then you have to go off trail. And it's not a big deal because unlike say in the Midwest or in the southeast part of the country, when you bushwhack, there's no bushes to whack. I mean, it's pretty open. The drawback to that is there's no bushes to whack and it's pretty open. I mean, it all looks pretty much the same. And you turn around and it's like, wow, which way did I come up?
Yeah, how did I travel? Right.
So there's some unique challenges when you've got that situation. There's part of it that's easy, and there's part of it that if you don't think it through ahead of time, you could end up going off in totally the wrong direction. You really have to maintain a lot of directional awareness and situational awareness so that you know where you are, you know where your compass points are. That could involve, recording your tracks on a GPS device, noting where you are on a topographic map, taking note of certain things that are unique.
Taking a good dog.
Well, I don't have a dog, but if I did, that would be a good idea.
Well, that's one skill that I learned. I lost my dog a few months ago, but I started noticing sometimes she would get behind me when we'd be headed back to the car. And it finally dawned on me, if she's leading, she's on our track. If she's behind me, she has no clue where I'm going. In other words, I'm off track because she's not following her own path back. And so I learned to, okay, Maggie, where do we go?
Help me get home.
Yeah. I've actually there was one summit I did in northern Wisconsin. I call it, I don't know if it's called officially this way, but I call it the Bayfield Peninsula. There's a tourist town called Bayfield up close to the tip, and right off of Bayfield are the Apostle Islands, and it kind of sticks out into Lake Superior. And these are not high pointers at all. But this one summit has got a very dense growth on it. I mean, the forest on that is so dense that you feel like you're hacking. You feel like you need a machete to hack through when you're bushwhacking the last part in order to get into the activation zone. And one time I activated it, it was the weather was it was like a soft rain off and on coming down. And I remember taking off my pack and trying to set up my antenna in the midst of all this growth. And then I turned around and I realized, oh my God, where's my pack? The growth was so dense, I couldn't find at first where the heck everything else was. And when I sat down to activate that summit, I could hear the rain. I never felt a drop. I never saw a drop. It was that dense. It was the wildest thing. I'm hoping they've logged that off since then. I have to get back out there and check.
Wow. Okay. Well, so let's kind of shift gears a little bit because I one of the things that kind of led me to your door, Amy, and Paula for coming on. Is the article that was in January's QST. So if you got to go back in the Wayback Machine a little bit, but Amy contributed an article that I thought was phenomenal. It was definitely an experience that I had read, and I was like, wow, man, this is just definitely cool to see that there are a group of ladies who are out doing this stuff. More so that they're way like. I'm like kind of like at the base here in terms of like my SOTA experience and hiking and being outdoors to seeing where they're at. And I'm just like totally just enamored by them. And I'm like, we got to have them on to have them, share their conversation, share their experience and their conversations a little bit. So Amy, kind of talk a little bit about that article and maybe kind of dovetail into a little bit of, what we call what you've dubbed the Queens of the Mountain event and kind of elaborate more, into the YLs and SOTA and that type of experience.
Okay. Well, we were both, Paula and I were, we had a guy reached out to us, a association manager reached out to us asking about getting more women involved. And I think at least I had my hands full and stuff, partly because of this camp out. And that was top of my plate. And when we did the camp out, there was plenty of women there. And so we decided to do the summit together, 8 of us up on the mountain. And it was just, it was sort of just routine for me, I was more the organizer, just, okay, let's get up there and get back down, and how we do the radios and stuff. But to some of the women, it was really moving. They hadn't operated with another woman before. Some of them had barely been on the radio without their old man right by their side. Some of it, yeah. I think it was the first time they had been on a mountain, and their old man is the one calling them back. Just these little things that made it a bit special. And we even had one YL who she had only been licensed, I think, a week, and so I was just thinking about that, and how can we get people to okay, I'll go back a little bit. I think that I can't say all women, but myself and many that I know have problems doing like activities that there isn't like a reason, a purpose. And men, I think it's stereotypically a little easier. I mean, like sitting and fishing and catching nothing for many hours. I can't do that.
I can't either, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I get it.
It's casting practice.
It's a social activity with beer drinking. The fishing line is incidental.
It's just a bonus.
Well, and it's same with sitting in a shack. It's like I have trouble just sitting, especially once I got hooked on POTA and or just portable operations and SOTA and everything. And so I see you guys are mainly POTA operators. I mean, you probably see that there is a large number of women getting in radio, going portable. And so I just came up with the idea of doing this special events call signs and doing it kind of like Route 66 or the, 12 Days of Christmas, it's where you're chasing the
13 colonies.
Yeah. I mean, just to try and get at least a little bit more activity in each region across the states. And so that's how that came about. And Paula and I crossed paths and thought, let's do it, and let's make this a fun event that people want to come and join. And that's what we hope to continue. I mean, we're downsizing kind of the way that we're doing it. In a way, we're not going to do the special events. We just want women to come and make people know that they are YLs up on the mountain doing this. And we encourage them to bring another woman along, especially new operators, and just inspire.
Now, how is that?
You just be inspired of how many people you may be inspiring and you don't know it.
Well, that's funny as you mentioned it, because we do other activities similar, kind of like bringing the youth in and other public events for ham radio in general. But like I find it very interesting is we do have a lot of YLs in our club, as an example, but a lot of them, they do a little bit of POTA here. But they're not all kind of. It's kind of interesting because I want them to get together and start doing more. So it's like I try to find folks like yourself who are like, hey, we're just doing these activities. So like I feed them a lot of those things. I'm like, hey, this person over here, he's doing this whole activity, or so I try to plug into like things like the YLs. Why am I forgetting the net or the not the net? Well, it's a YL's network or club. Why am I forgetting?
YLRL?
Yeah. Thank you, YLRL. And just trying to find ladies that can, who are in our club, who I know could plug in that way, because I feel like it's just important for us guys, to continue to practice, as Paul says, casting, in the ham radio side. But I find it's even more important because, to have those connections, because we had couples, and we've interviewed a few on our show before, that they're big POTA people, and they like the POTA Powder. I don't know if you ever heard of POTA Powder or the ham radio duo couple, and they're big CW guys, and they like doing POTA parks, and it's just like getting more couples out in that kind of thing, and just like really just getting more people in the hobby and playing radio, which is really my biggest, thing is I want to see them start doing more of that. So, I applaud you for just picking up the torch and running it, because that's always the toughest part, right? To just kind of organize it.
Right. And I think that both Paula and I, when we were first talking about it, I mean, we were both kind of like, is this really needed? Because both of us have had a very positive, welcoming environment in radio. I mean, there's always been, a few bad apples out there, but, and I myself, I'm used to being involved in some outdoorsy things that is already male dominant. And, it's just, I'm used to it. And, but through the camp out, through when we were first reaching out to people to take on the special events call signs, finding people to agree to that, you discover that not all women have had that experience, and some have had poor experiences. I mean, just recently I was at a local club, and it was still, there was here we have these young new ops and their mother with them. And there was just some really inappropriate, misogynistic comments being made. It's like, we got to get over this and make an environment that's welcoming. And I think for some women, it does take that all woman group to get, take that first step.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and it's tough, because if you're like, you're only one of 3 females in a club, a lot of times it's like, you're not always going to want to step up into that whole, larger group of men who are like, been doing it forever. And it's like, I always try to make space for that, because I think it's important, because you guys sometimes are way better operators than us. I've sat in front of a number of, we actually have 2 ladies in our club, Anna, who's, she's phenomenal CW operator. And like, I sat down next to her one time at a field day, and she's like at 45, 50 words a minute, and like not even like banging stuff off. And I'm just like, my jaw's wide open. I remember seeing a picture of myself, like looking like I just like, what the heck am I witnessing here? And she's just like, no big deal. Like, this is no problem. And she's like, kind of like shy about it. I'm like, but wait a minute here. Let me introduce you to this other female who's just starting to learn Morse code. And like, they just hooked up, and like, it just kind of like just unfurled. And so that makes me more interested to see that, that stuff happening, because, like, this is not a male dominated hobby. It's always been like that growing up as a kid, but I never wanted it that way. I wanted my girlfriends to come see how cool ham radio was and be part of it. But, I had too many older adults.
Your wife to come.
Well, yeah, that's a different story. My daughter's a ham radio operator. She went and got her ticket. She, she loves doing it. She's in her 20s, so she's, off chasing boys in her, her life, but she'll come back around and want to do ham radio again. But, she does that stuff, and she enjoys, hanging out in that hobby. But, so that's always important, I think, and so you guys, are good. So the first camp out you guys started was this January, right? Or just prior before this January, you guys scheduled another one coming up soon?
No.
Oh,
no, the Oregon campouts, I started those in, gosh, can't remember.
A long time.
22 or
pre-COVID, maybe, or after COVID?
I think it was 22 was our first, and because 23 that was our second one. So
wow.
This year will be the fourth, and we'll be doing it at the same place that we did it in the 23.
Okay. So
yeah, but I mean that's sort of separate from Queens of the Mountain. But I mean the name, it was just, if you read some mountaineering stuff, and also one of our avid SOTA operators, that's the term King of the Mountain is pretty common in hiking and summiting and stuff like that, but you don't really hear Queens of the Mountain. So, I mean, I kind of got that from seeing N7KOM's call sign a lot, because he lives here in Oregon. Yeah.
Now, so what other activities are you guys kind of organizing or trying to influence or encourage others to do? Maybe you can kind of, share some of that, and, where other people can kind of plug in. If we have a bunch of female listeners listening, I know. So I'm sure they're very interested to see how they can plug in, or maybe there's other avenues or outlets that they can plug in locally around here that you guys know of.
Well, let me just mention, there is one thing that we've changed with Queens of the Mountain for this year that we're hoping will encourage even more YLs to participate. When we did it last year, we weren't really sure how it was going to be received, how much participation we would get. And I think partly by way of encouraging that participation, we encourage people to get the special 1x1 call signs that are available in the United States. But we got actually some international coverage even last year for the event. And this year, for the first time, the event will be open to YLs around the world. So we will not be emphasizing the 1x1 calls. If somebody wants to do that in the US, they can do it. If there's an equivalent in another country, they can do that. But we're encouraging people simply to get on the air, use hashtags to call attention to it. But it's now international in flavor. So in terms of encouraging even more YLs to participate, we're looking forward to what we hope will be a lot of YLs outside of the United States that will see the opportunity and participate, whether as chasers or activators.
Very cool. And so if we had somebody who was interested and wanted to kind of follow up with you guys, what's the easiest way to reach out to you guys via? Because I noticed I'm looking up at the SOTA reflector. I just happened to saw a post up there about that. But is there a better way? What's the best way to reach out to you guys if they want to participate or get more info on it? And
probably the QRZ email.
So from your call sign,
probably the best. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's one thing we might. That's a good thing for us to be reminded of. Might put something on our QRZ page in reference to it. I mean, that was one benefit of having this special events. We could have call signs. We could have the QRZ pages for those calls. So this year we're mainly using the reflector and just trying to spread the word.
Right. Now, in terms of the kind of, so it's one weekend in June. So just kind of give us kind of a little basics of it. So someone who's never heard of it before, is interested in when does it occur and what kind of is the whole premise behind it?
Well, it's to, of course, get on the air as for SOTA being a YL, but then we have the special kind of, what would you call them, Paula? Awards?
Yeah, what we did last year, and we tinkered with it a bit because of the international aspect, and we wanted to make sure that nobody in any one part of the world necessarily got a big advantage over what we defined as achievements. So we didn't want people to think of this so much as a contest, because that does put a somewhat different tenor on things. We wanted to encourage participation. We have about 6 achievements that we've defined, and they could be something as simple as making 5 or more contacts with YL activators, having a first time ever SOTA activation by a YL, having a contact between 2 YLs, each of which are on a summit. Just as to give 3 examples.
Okay.
And so what we did was we gave certificates to everybody who at least qualified for one of those achievements. And generally we'll have the same approach this year, and we'll probably have a special award given. It will be tied to the number of achievements, but not determined solely by the number of achievements. There will be some. We will be looking. We're not going to look at it arbitrarily,
sure,
but we will be looking at other aspects of individual participation in deciding an award that actually is named after a woman who, with her husband, activated a bunch of summits, I think got to Mountain Goat twice. And in all of her operating, you would never, ever have guessed she was blind.
What? Oh, wow.
K1 LIZ.
Yeah, K1 Lima India Zulu, Liz. And she and her husband, Ron, they lived in, Ron still lives in Tennessee. In fact, I just saw him a couple of weeks ago. He was at the W4 camp out. He and his wife would go activate together. I was very honored. I had a chance to meet Liz several years ago. Sadly, she passed away about 3 years ago. But we thought it really. I have to give credit here. She's too generous to say it, but this whole concept of this event is really Amy's vision and brainchild. she thought of this catalyzed by this campout experience in Oregon. And she also came up with the special award and naming it after Liz. I've just kind of been part of it to help her realize that vision, but it really is Amy's vision for this whole event. She should get credit for it.
I'd like to come up with these ideas, but I'm not that great of sorting things out and organizing computers and stuff, and Paula has been the rock for that.
Well, you understand where the right people, it's like not everybody has the right set of tools. You've got all of the idea. You're the idea man. You just need someone to have the execution in some sense. Yeah. So I totally get that.
And I wanted to reiterate with Liz. I mean, I never met her, but I was always inspired from when I first started. And I'm not even sure if I ever had a QSO with her because of our time differences. But I think that she actually achieved 3-time mountain goat.
Oh, that might be. I may be wrong.
And I think that her last trips out on the mountain were only, I think, weeks before she passed away.
Wow. Did it right up to the final end. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's dedication.
You're right on that.
Ron was pretty honored that we did that for Liz.
That is very cool. That is awesome. That just makes this whole program, this whole brainchild, this grassroots thing that much better. It's like, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, dude.
Well, I think the women have a little bit different perspective on stuff a lot of times. And I mean, I learned that actually with my first summit is I really didn't use Facebook much. And I decided to share it on there on the SOTA page. And it was like probably about a few dozen photos of wildflowers. And people are like, where is this? So somebody told me this. He said, this is really cool because usually it's just these guys, with their arm up in the air, up on top of the mountain, being proud to get up there. And it's like, ooh, look at this flower.
It's totally okay. We have a lady in our club, Jean. She's a big CW nut. She's a music teacher, piano teacher by trade, and she does YouTube videos on CW. She does CW jokes, and she just records them all over Morse code. And it's just like, and some people are like, I don't get it. I'm like, that's just quirky. It's funny. It's good. I can't always understand it because I'm not a great CW guy, but it's at the same time, it's good. Her way showing how important that aspect of the hobby is. So it's cool. And her quirkiness. So yeah, cool. Awesome. Okay. So you guys have any other things you want to throw in? Any questions?
June 7th through 8th is the date.
Oh, because it's on, this is May 2024. Okay. So I'm looking at an old reflector post. Sorry. Be on the right reflector.
And the important thing is, while it's not a contest, particularly because of the international flavor, while it starts on June 7, as we know, June 7 in the U.S. on Zulu time actually starts sometime on Friday. So it's important that people know that the contest starts at 0 Zulu on June 7 and runs basically through 2359 Zulu on June 8. So think of it like CQ Worldwide CW contest the weekend after Thanksgiving, usually. And that always starts Friday night and runs through sometime in Sunday afternoon. So in this case, that's the time frame we're talking about.
Now, question numbers wise, did you guys keep track roughly last year how many you guys had participate, or did you have a rough idea how many custom vanity calls you had?
Well, I think we had a call, somebody operating in all but one area of, because what we did was we actually did one, like W1Q, W2Q, W3Q, and so forth. And then, because especially some areas, like back in your regions, there wasn't a whole lot of women. But then here in Oregon, California, there was a lot that we chose time frames to share the call sign.
Now,
so we had like a sign up Google Docs sign up sheet on a spreadsheet so that people
don't let that fool you. There's a bunch of radio ladies that are radio enthusiasts. They're just closet radio enthusiasts because they've been, there've been a lot of bad will say, misogynistic guys just basically try to say, my wife just got their ticket because I told her to go kind of get a ticket. But I know a lot of them want to get out and start doing more of the hobby. And, I try to always leave the door wide open for, them to come in and do whatever they're interested in. But, it takes a lot of changing because, we're New England, we're the frozen chosen. So it takes a long time for anybody to kind of get around to, realize that there's a different way to look at something. So it's all cool. So cool. Awesome. All right. Well, you guys got any last things you want to throw at them? Because I definitely think this has been an awesome experience for me specifically, and just to hear that this is happening, and definitely want to help support as much as we can.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's just, and I learned a little bit of Summits on the Air too, so thank you for that. And it was it's a lot of good stuff.
It's great to meet you guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well,
I would just say, Eric, you mentioned, your limited SOTA experience. And all I would say is every single person in SOTA, Amy and me included, were exactly where you are now.
Yep.
So, don't let that discourage any of you from getting involved. It's like any other activity. You ramp up into it. And the good news is, like just about every other aspect of ham radio, there's plenty of people that are out there that will mentor you as they've mentored me to this day. So,
that would be Paul. He's got a goal of at least working at least 10 of the 4,000 footers this year, or whatever your number is. So I'm going to be tagging along. So yeah, we'll be working on it.
Very good.
I appreciate the encouragement.
Stay with it. Post your links so we can chase you.
I just want to say, you ladies are truly an inspiration. Teamwork makes the dream work, and so kudos to you guys for teaming up and playing on each other's strengths. I hope that this turns into a much bigger thing, and you get a lot more ladies involved. And if you don't mind a fella tagging along, I'd love to join you on one of these summits.
Oh yeah, you guys would be more funner to play, hang out and play radio with.
Yeah, the old man had, I'd say, more fun than some of the women. I mean, the chasing, I've had so many people reach out, when are you going to do this again? And so, it's
a lot of it
for everybody.
And be aware, this is actually an important point that I don't think we called out. We talked about these achievements, and the idea, and most of the achievements are focused on the YL participants, but there is an achievement that anybody, whether a YL or a guy, can get, and that is working 5 or more female activators. So guys, when the event comes up, tune your radios up, look for the hashtag hashtag QOM, work those stations, and if you get 5 or more, I will be sending you a certificate.
Sweet. Yeah, you have to definitely make that a note.
Yeah, we ask people to just let us know what they think they qualify for. And SOTA itself, I think the same is true for POTA. For the most part, it runs on the honor system. If I say I went to a summit and I worked these 10 people, it doesn't work the way Logbook of the World works and some of the other more competitive things. And we work this event the same way. We figure you've got to live with what you tell us.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to tell us that you did X, and we'll accept it, and you get your certificate. So keep that in mind for that weekend.
Awesome, dude. That is very cool, guys. Well, cool. With that, we're going to kind of wrap up today. And again, thank you, Amy and Paula, for coming on and sharing with us, because we are totally blown away by all the stuff you guys are doing and supporting YLs in the hobby, and just, getting out there and conquering some big freaking mountains. I'm all in awe. So thank you again for coming on. And I'm glad we kind of got this all worked out. So with that, let's wrap this up. So thank you again for joining Live Free and Ham and being part of the community. We truly appreciate you, everyone who supports the show, and we can't thank all you guys enough. And so always, if you want to connect with us, you can head over to our Discord server and join us in the conversation, and the link will be over there. And this episode will be posted there too as well. So if you got questions for SOTA or Amy or Paula, feel free to post them there, and we'll make sure we get those over to those ladies, and they can get your he answers back. And as always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you can catch us on all our live streams and all of the awesome content that's over here, including this episode. And as always, if you feel compelled, leave us a review on our SMS link located in all our show notes, or you can always use our voicemail number at 978-233-1142. And always, you can support our show by joining our Patreon or buy us a beer links. And if you want to learn more about any of us, including the show itself, you can head over to livefreeandham.com and check out all of our shows, our latest information and swag. And thanks again for listening. And as always, from all of us at Live Free and Ham, 7-3, guys.
Great.
7-3.